Thank you. Okay, councillors, I'd like to open a special council meeting at 8:35. So we'll move straight down. Oh, actually, I haven't acknowledged the traditional owners of the land, so just want to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We'll move straight down to item 4, which is the report that we're dealing with, which is in relation to the differential rates amendment. Are there questions that anyone would like to pose? Councillor Ganjo?
Thank you, Worship. Happy to move the officer recommendation when required.
I have questions.
Councillor Hamilton?
Okay. Of the staff. Okay. Having read the report, I understand that the residential land as moved in our resolution, that at that time we were unaware that we did not comply with the 50% rule, that in fact there are 70% of the properties that will be on the minimum rate. Therefore, the residential section of our resolution from July does not comply with the Act. Is that correct?
That's what I understand.
Right, okay. So, the discussion then moves on to the advertising. The department has come back and said that the advertising complied. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Well, that hasn't been a question that's been issued. That has never arisen in the initial advertisement, and the advertising process complied with all the requirements of the Act.
Okay, so we complied with the Act in that respect. So then we come down to so obviously our resolution from July, point 2, section B, which related to the residential section, which reads, sorry, I just need to find it in the agenda. So point 2 of the resolution, which was OCM 1907-19, states 2, implements a differential rating for the 2019-20 financial year as follows. A, GRV vacant industrial, vacant commercial, vacant non-residential land, rate in the dollar of 0.145 and a minimum rates of 1,800. B, GRV vacant residential land, rate in the dollar of 0.08 and a minimum rates of 1,200. So we all agree, I think, in this room that point B of that resolution does not comply because over 50% of those vacant properties are at the minimum and you're only allowed to have 50% in any category. So we agree with that. Point A, if the advertising was valid and according to the Act, and this relates to industrial and commercial land, would I be correct in saying that we could ask the Department of Local Government, if we delete the residential, we can go back to the Department of Local Government and ask them, given our advertising complied, that if we have deleted residential, we can ask if point A complies. Is that correct?
We can ask, but the advice that they've provided today is that the current proposed that adoption was unlawful.
The advice, let's correct that. Let's be really specific there. The advice received was that the resolution, as it's written, does not comply. The advice was not about whether an amended resolution would comply. Is that correct?
No advice. We haven't received advice in relation to whether the residential component can be excised from that resolution.
Okay, so you've received advice that the residential component does not comply,
Yes.
right? But you haven't, as far as I can tell, received any written advice about whether the balance of that resolution complies or not, if the residential component is removed. And the advice, correct me if I'm wrong, the advice received has been simply by telephone, it has not been in writing.
It's been in an email.
In an email, which we haven't received a copy of, okay. So, the advice does not actually dissect this to ascertain whether the industrial and commercial component would be acceptable to the department if separated out from the residential. I know that we have some issues about the categories, but correct me also, was the advertising in the objects and reasons for, in the second part, in the objects and reasons, it said GRV industrial vacant, residential vacant and commercial vacant. So those three things were mentioned in the second part of the objects and reasons. So if we are deleting the residential which does not comply, I again ask the question, which I don't think we have an answer for tonight, and which we probably won't have an answer for until someone tomorrow rings the department. But I would seek to remove the residential which we believe does not comply, which we know does not comply, and seek further advice thereafter on the commercial and the industrial, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, would we be able to actually have the administration talk to the department tomorrow?
We can certainly talk to the department, but we can't control when they might respond.
Okay.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, accepting as given and outlined by Councillor Hamilton that there is an issue with regards to the very minor variation that we made to vacant residential land, I move instead to the comments here in the report under the heading Advertising Requirements. It says that the town advertised 2 different rating categories but ultimately adopted 3 categories. Could you please explain what is meant by that?
So the town advertised 2 different rating categories, which was essentially vacant land and non-vacant land. The town implemented 3 differential rating categories, which was the vacant land split into vacant commercial industrial land and vacant residential land. So the 2 categories there, and non-vacant land. So the 3 categories that were adopted were non-vacant land, vacant residential, and the 3rd category, vacant commercial industrial.
Okay, so if the 3rd category is the vacant residential, if that was to be rescinded, that would only leave 2 categories, is that correct?
Yes.
Which would be the 2 categories that we advertised, is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
How so?
Because one of the categories that we advertised vacant land, which included not only vacant commercial and industrial, but also vacant residential.
Okay, so dealing then with the category of vacant land as a single category, we advertised an increase to the rate for commercial vacant land, industrial vacant land and residential vacant land as a single category. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yes. So if there was a variation in that category, it's still the same category, is it not? How does it create a new category?
I'm not going to give legal advice now in relation to that. That's
So you appreciate then the challenging situation it places me in as a decision maker about this, is that I'm being asked to make a decision about something that I do not have advice about. Now, it seems common sense to me that if we went out and advertised about 2 categories, and then after receiving community feedback, we did a slight change to one of those categories. It seems to me that there's still only 2 categories, just one category slightly changed. It hasn't created a 3rd category. How is it the case that there would need to be a new notification requirement?
the town received this proposal this afternoon and hasn't had the opportunity at this point to obtain advice on that particular part of the proposal.
So, if we were to remove the non-compliant section from category 1, being the vacant residential, leaving the other two parts of that category unchanged from what it was that we advertised. Is it not the case that we still just have two categories, one slightly changed after receiving feedback from the community?
I don't think the issue is the number of categories per se. I think it's the makeup of those categories that's essentially what the department is taking exception to.
Well, that possibly is the case, but I don't have the department's email before me, so I can't take that into my considerations. In the report, though, it says that the town advertised 2 ratings categories, but ultimately adopted 3 ratings categories. I'm testing the accuracy of that sentence, because to me it seems like there's still only 2 categories, one of them slightly amended after having received community feedback.
So, Councillor Wilson, can I propose that we adjourn and give the staff the chance to go and retrieve the emails so that we all have a copy of the correspondence that's been received?
Yes.
Yes? Others in agreement?
I'm happy to move that way.
Okay, so that would be wonderful.